Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Vistaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swamiti Namane Namaste Saraswata Devi Gauravani Pacharani Nirvishesha Snyavadi Paskachai Desaptarani. So we will first have 10 minutes Kirtan.
Yes, Maharaj, please.
And then a class of 20 minutes.
Yes, Maharaj. Till 8:15 we can go. At 10 past 8 or 8:15, including question answer. Then we will have Narshinga Kavach, Maharaj, and then Narshinga Dev prayer. That's the plan.
At the end, yeah. Okay. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, 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 Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityananda Namaste Saraswati Devi Jai Vishnupat Paramahamsa Parvakacharya Satarasatsa Srimat is the divine grace. Abhayacharana Vinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Jai Vishnupat Paramahamsa Parvakacharya Satarasatsa Srimat is divine Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Shri Guru Parampara Ki. Shri Rup Shri Sanatan Shri Bhattacharya Shri Pakapala Bhatta Dasarvanath Ki. Ananta Koti Vaishnavina Ki, Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki. Prem Se Guru Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavina Ki. Hare Krishna Gop Gopnath Shyam Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki. Vrindavan Ki, Shri Mayapur Dham Ki. Yamunamaya Ki, Bhakti Devi Tulsi Devi Ki. Shri Gaura Premanande. All devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the
Hare
assembled
Krishna.
devotees, all glories to
Hare
Shiva and
Krishna.
Shiranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. This evening I will read from the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, Most Confidential Knowledge. When Srila Prabhupada was in New Mayapur in France, he met a general of the French army, and the general was interested in Bhagavad Gita. But he said to Prabhupada, I don't have much time, so what's the most important chapter of the Bhagavad Gita? Prabhupada said, you read chapter 9. 9, the most confidential knowledge. And we will study two important verses, which Srila Prabhupada quoted many times. That's 9:13 and 9:14. So verse 13, chapter 9, the most confidential knowledge. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Mahatmanastu mam pakta devim prakatrin ashvita pachanamaso chakyatva bhutadim avyayam. So, translation and purpose by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. O son of Pita, those who are not deluded, the great souls, are under the protection of the divine nature. They are fully engaged in devotional service. They know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible. So important in this verse is Mahatma. What's a Mahatma? It tells us a great soul is someone who searches the protection of the divine nature, Daivi Prakriti. And how do they do that? By engagement in devotional service. And by engaging in devotional service, they get knowledge and they get to know Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's in the first paragraph, Srila Prabhupada explains a Mahatma is someone who has taken shelter of Daivi Prakriti, the spiritual energy. And I read the last paragraph of the commentary of Srila Prabhupada. The Mahatma does not divert his attention to anything outside Krishna, because he knows perfectly well that Krishna is the original Supreme Person, the cause of all causes. There is no doubt about it. Such a Mahatma or great soul develops through association with other Mahatmas, pure devotees. Pure devotees are not even attracted by Krishna's other features, such as the four-armed Mahavishnu. They are simply attracted by the two-armed form of Krishna. They are not attracted to other features of Krishna, nor are they concerned with any form of a demigod or of a human being. They meditate only upon Krishna in Krishna consciousness. They are always engaged in unswerving service of the Lord in Krishna consciousness. So this is the Mahatma who is always connected with the higher energy, the spiritual energy. But how do they do that? How do these Mahatmas connect? That's explained in the next verse. How do they do it? Satatam kirtayantam mam yadanta sadrita vatam. Namayant samam nityam tushanti sha. Yeah, namayant samam bhaktya nitya yukta upashate. So, satatam, always, kirtayanta, they perform always kirtan, chanting the glories of the Lord. And namasyanta, they bow down before the Lord. And nitya yukta, they always worship the Lord with devotion. Translation, always chanting my glories, endeavoring with great determination, bowing down before me, these great souls perpetually worship me with devotion. So the second paragraph of the purport says, when we are attached to the impersonal feature of the Supreme, the Brahmacharya is not described as a Mahatma in the Bhagavad Gita. So an impersonalist is not a Mahatma according to Bhagavad Gita. That he does not do that. The activities of a Mahatma is Satatam Kirtayantamam, always chanting the glories of the Lord. It's described in a different way in the next verse. The next verse speaks about a impersonalist. But the Mahatma is always engaged in different activities of devotional service, as described in Srimad Bhagavatam. What does the Mahatma do? Hearing and chanting about Vishnu, not a demigod or a human being. About Vishnu, about Krishna. That is devotion. What are these activities? Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam. Hearing about Krishna, performing kirtan. The kirtan means broadcasting the glories of the Lord. And Smaranam, then one remembers, remembering him. Such Mahatma is firm determination to achieve at the ultimate end association of the Lord in any of the 5 transcendental rasas. So one's relationship with Krishna becomes awakened, when one becomes purified. And to achieve that success, he engages all activities, mental, bodily and vocal, everything in the service of the Supreme Lord. That is called full Krishna consciousness. So, the first verse defines what a Mahatma is, and the second verse speaks about the activities of a Mahatma. That Omajnanatimandasyanchanansalakan Saksaran Miritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamiti Namani. Namaste Saraswata Deve Gauravani Pacharani Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paskatyai Dasatarani. So Rupa Goswami explains that there are 3 kinds of energies. That Bahiranga Sakti, the external energy, Antaranga Sakti, the internal energy or the spiritual energy, and Tatastha Sakti, marginal energy. What is this Tatastha Sakti, this marginal energy? That's we, the Jivas, the spirit soul. We are marginal. Why are we called marginal? Because by our desires we cannot dovetail our consciousness either with the spiritual or the material energy. It's up to us. We can spiritualize our consciousness or materialize So we can connect with the spiritual energy, with the material energy. How do we do that? By our consciousness and our desire. If we desire to please ourselves, and it's all I and mine in our life, yes, then we are connected with the material energy like everyone else in this world. And then we are under the control of Prakriti, material nature. But if we desire to please Krishna and understand we are a part and parcel of Krishna, and Satatam, we do this Satatam Kirtayantaman, we are coming under the spiritual energy. And finally, if we become purified, we take shelter of a specific kind of spiritual energy called Ladini Shakti. It's the pleasure potency of Srimati Radharani. And that is Bhakti, Prema, love for God, love for Krishna. So it's up to us, but there is a process. Let us look at the Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna book here. Then we have chapter 23, delivering the wives of the Brahmins who performed sacrifice. So this is during the day. Krishna and the cowherd boys are herding the cows and have their play. But especially during the summertime, they become thirsty and hungry after the play. And the cowherd boys said to Krishna, yes, we think you are hungry, because this is like that in the spiritual world. They want to please Krishna. He said, let us get some food somewhere. And yes, Krishna said, yeah, these Brahmins are performing sacrifice there, you go there. And they went there, and they were asking the Brahmins, please, Krishna and Balarama are hungry, give us some food. But they even did not give attention to them. They were so absorbed in their ritualistic sacrifices performed for going to heaven, that said, this is serious business, go away, these children. So the Gopas came back to Krishna and Balaram, and Krishna said, yes, sometimes you beg, and sometimes you don't receive anything. That's like this. But you can ask the wives of the Brahmins. So they went to the wives of the Brahmins and begged there for food. And they were devotees of Krishna. How did they become devotees of Krishna? Interesting. They heard from the Pulindas. Who are the Pulindas? The Pulindas are the original, the aborigines, the original residents of Vrindavan. And they were forest people. And they were collecting fruits from the forest and so on, and so on. And they were selling these fruits, that these Pulindas, and by that they came in contact with the wives of the wives of the Brahmins. But these Pulindas, they were pure devotees of Krishna. That's mentioned in the Bhagavatam. How did they become pure devotees of Krishna? Because they saw Krishna in the forest, and they became attracted. And it is said that when Krishna embraced the gopis, some of the kumkum from the breast of the gopis fell on the dust of Vrindavan, and they would collect that dust and wrap it on their bodies, and they would feel great ecstasy. And so they were speaking about Krishna to the wives of the Brahmins, and just by hearing, they became great devotees. And so when they heard a request to cook for Krishna, they immediately started cooking with great devotion and rushed to Krishna and Balaram. And Krishna was very pleased. When they came, he said to them, "My dear wives of the Brahmins, you are all very fortunate and are welcome here. Please let me know what I can do for you. Your coming here is here to see me neglecting all the restriction and hindrances of relatives, fathers, brothers and husbands is completely befitting, because their husband didn't agree that they would come to Krishna and Balaram, but still they rushed out. One who does this actually knows his self-interest, Krishna says. Because rendering transcendental loving service unto me without motive or restriction is actually auspicious for the living entities. So that's surrendering to Krishna. And Krishna says, I'm very pleased with that. By that you can reach the perfection state that. But of course they had a personal association there of Krishna. But then Krishna said, my dear wives of the Brahmins, you can now return to your homes. He said, go home again. Engage yourself in sacrificial activities. Do what you did before, hearing about me, chanting about me, perform your sadhana. And engage in the service of your husband and do your household duties, so that your husband will be pleased and that the sacrifice they began will be properly executed. Because to do this sacrifice, the wife must assist. That's in the scriptures. That's Krishna said, after all, you are householders, and without your help, they cannot execute their prescribed duties. But the wives of the Brahmins said, but that if we go back, our husbands, our fathers, our sons, our mothers and friends, they will no longer accept us because we have already left them. We have no shelter, we cannot return. Please therefore do not ask us to return home. But the Supreme Lord replied, my dear wives of the Brahmins, rest assured that your husband will not neglect you on your return, nor will your brothers, sons or fathers refuse to accept you. Because you are my pure devotees, not only your relatives, but also people in general, as well as the demigods, will be satisfied with you. Krishna is situated as a supersoul in everyone's heart. So someone who becomes a pure devotee, Srila Prabhupada writes, immediately becomes pleased to everyone. The pure devotee of Lord Krishna is never inimical to anyone, nor can any same person be an enemy of a pure devotee. Transcendental love for me does not depend upon bodily connection, Krishna said further. But anyone whose mind is always absorbed in me will surely very, very soon come to me for eternal association. So Krishna says, it is not by my personal proximity that you get perfection. That the perfection is that you stay in your situation and you perform your sadhana. And that sadhana will purify you, this kirtan, and then later you will develop love for me, Krishna says, and I'm in your heart. And you will see me all the time. You will get always my association. Because they were pure devotees, they were already purified. So by performing their sadhana, their minds were connected with Krishna. They were thinking of Krishna, and thinking of Krishna is the same as being with Krishna, that absorption. Therefore, these Mahatmas, the Srila Prabhupada writes, yes, they do not divert their attention to anything else than Krishna. And the process to attain them is Satatam Kirtayantamam. Interesting, they went home, and these ritualistic Brahmins, their husbands, realized that they made a mistake. Krishna gave them the realization by the mercy of their wives that their wives were much more advanced, and they became very humble and glorified their wives, and they accepted them as their guru. It is said here. So that's the position that you get when you perform this kirtan, or following this instruction of Srila Prabhupada in these commentaries of these verses. Then you become guru, ready to instruct everyone in Krishna consciousness. Lord Chaitanya says, yes, one who knows the signs of Krishna is a guru, and that's the way to know the signs, by this practice. So we can learn here from this pastime what Krishna expects from us, that yes, this Satatam Kirtayantamam, always glorifying Krishna by hearing, remembering, and by glorifying, by study of the Bhagavatam, by chanting Hare Krishna, by worshiping the deity. Yes, all kirtan, by distributing Srila Prabhupada's books, also kirtan, even Sankirtan, complete kirtan. So that is our business. That's the business of a Mahatma. Mahatma tumam partam devim prakatyasya. Then we connect with the Antaranga Shakti, the spiritual energy, especially the Ladini Shakti. When we get perfection, then we get Bhava, Prema. That is the perfection of life. So there was one professor in America when Srila Prabhupada was there, and he wrote an article in the newspapers telling that this Hare Krishna movement is saying that one should always chant Hare Krishna. But this chanting of Hare Krishna, it's not in Bhagavad Gita. So when Srila Prabhupada read that in the newspaper, he wrote the professor and told him, my dear professor, you must have missed the following verse of Bhagavad Gita, 9:14. Satatam kirtayantamam yatanta shadritavata namayant samam bhakta nityokta upashati. This is mentioned here in the Gita. The process is Satatam kirtam, always kirtan, and that connects our consciousness always with Krishna. Thank you very much. Any questions, comments, please?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
So devotees, if you have any comments, questions, any realization, please do ask now, do share.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, very nice class. Thank you so much. Maharaj, how did the Brahmanas finally come to realize that their wives have, because initially when the cowherd boys came, they did not realize, but how did they realize later? Was there any event, or did Krishna appear in their heart and tell them?
It's the last point for sure. It says here in Krishna book, the learned Brahmins expert in Vedic ritualistic performance were properly regretful, because if one does not develop Krishna consciousness, all the charge of religious duties is simply a waste of time and energy. They continue to talk among themselves. The external energy of Krishna is so strong that it can create illusion to overcome even the greatest mystic yogi. Although we expert Brahmins are considered to be teachers of all other sections of human society, we have also been illusioned by the external energy. Just see how fortunate these women are. They have so devotedly dedicated their lives to the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna that they easily did what is ordinarily so difficult. They gave up their family connections, which are just like a dark well for the continuation of material miseries. Women in general, being very simple at heart, can very easily take to Krishna consciousness, and they develop love of Krishna. They can easily get liberations from the clutches of Maya, which are very difficult for the so-called intelligent and learned man to surpass. The Brahmins continued, according to Vedic injunction, women are not allowed to undergo the purificatory process of initiation by the sacred thread, nor are they allowed to live as brahmacharinis in the ashram of the spiritual master, nor are they advised to undergo the strict disciplinary procedures, nor are they very expert in discussing the philosophy of self-realization. And by nature they are not very pure, nor are they very much attached to spiritual activities. Therefore, how wonderful it is that these women have developed transcendental love for Krishna in the Lord of all mystic yogis. They have surpassed all of us in devotion, faith and devotion unto Krishna. Although we are considered to be masters in all purificatory processes, we did not actually know what their goal is, because we are too much attached to the materialistic way of life. Even though we were reminded of Krishna and Balaram by the coward boys, we disregarded them. We now think that the Supreme Personality of God had simply played a trick of mercy on us by sending his friends to beg food for us. Otherwise, he did not to send them. He could have satisfied their hunger, and they are just willing to do so. So, if you hear that, these are the realizations they get, and Krishna gives that through the heart. They're realizing that in the Bhagavatam it's said very clear after that they accept their wives as Guru and worship them as spiritual master. So that's
Thank you, Maharaj.
very good. So I was thinking when I was reading this, it's going too long. I will not read that last part, but Krishna forced me to read it now by your question. Hare Krishna. Something else. Good, thank you. Okay, no further questions.
Yeah. Any other question from anybody? Looks like no.
No, then.
CJ Prabhu, sorry, CJ Prabhu, you are having any question? Okay, no.
Yeah,
So thank you. Sorry.
That's good news. That means you all accept what Krishna says, but then please practice it also. That you will be greatly benefit. So thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you very much for very nice, I would say, class and nice message. Thank you very much. And you rightly said Satatam Kirtantu Mama. I think if we can take that as a just some small message, that also like very important for all of us.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. Hare Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj.
And now, as we all know, that today we are dedicating this satsang for safe journey of our Santosh Prabhu mother, and she left the body 2 days back. and just want like safe journey for her. And if it's okay with you, Maharaj, we would like to have Nrsimha Kavach and then Nrsimha Dev prayer. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's good.
Thank you. So Utkarshini Mataji, I will share the screen with Nrsimha Kavach. If you can please, I know like Mataji has moved to the new home and there is no internet, so just trying to adjust. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. वीरं महाविष्णुं ज्वलन्तं सर्वतोमुखं नृसिंहं भीषणं भद्रं मृत्योर्मृत्युं नमाम्यहम् उग्रं वीरं महाविष्णुं ज्वलन्तं सर्वतोमुखं नृसिंहं भीषणं भद्रं मृत्योर्मृत्युं नमाम्यहम् उग्रं वीरं महाविष्णुं ज्वलन्तं सर्वतोमुखं नृसिंहं भीषणं भद्रं मृत्योर्मृत्युं नमाम्यहम् नृसिंहकवचं वक्ष्ये प्रह्लादेनोदितं पुरा सर्वरक्षकरं पुण्यं सर्वोपद्रवनाशनं सर्वसम्पत्करं चैव स्वर्गमोक्षप्रदायकम् ध्यात्वा नृसिंहं देवेशं हेमसिंहासनस्थितं विवृतास्यं त्रिनयनं शरदिन्दुसमप्रभं न्यालिङ्गितवामाङ्गं विभूतिभिरुपाश्रितम् चतुर्भुजं कोमलांगं स्वर्णकुण्डलशोभितं सरोजशोभितोरस्कं रत्नकेयूरमुद्रितं तप्तकाञ्चनसङ्काशं पीतनिर्मलवाससम् इन्द्रादिसुरमौलिस्तस्फुरन्माणिक्यदीप्तिभिः विराजितपदद्वन्द्वं शङ्खचक्रादिहेतिभिः गरुत्मता च विनयात् स्तूयमानं मुदान्वितम् स्वहृत्कमलसंवासं कृत्वा तु कवचं पठेत् नृसिंहो मे शिरः पातु लोकरक्षार्थसम्भवः सर्वगोपीस्तम्भवास फलं मे रक्षतु ध्वनिं नृसिंहो मे दृशः पातु सोमसूर्याग्निलोचनः स्मृतं मे पातु नृहरि मुनिवर्यः नासं मे सिंहनासस्तु मुखं लक्ष्मीमुखप्रियः सर्वविद्यादिकं पातु नृसिंहो रसनं मम वक्त्रं पात्विद्दुवदनं सदा प्रह्लादवन्दितः नृसिंहः पातु मे कण्ठं स्कन्दौ भूभृतनन्तकृत् दिव्यास्त्रशोभितभुजो नृसिंहः पातु मे भुजौ करौ मे देववरदो नृसिंहः पातु सर्वतः हृदयं योगिसाद्यश्च निवासं पातु मे हरिः मध्यं पातु हिरण्याक्ष वक्षः कुक्षिविदारणः नाभिं मे पातु नृहरि स्वनाभि ब्रह्म संस्तुतः ब्रह्माण्डकोटयः कट्यां यस्यासौ पातु मे कटिं गुह्यं मे पातु गुह्यानां मन्त्राणां गुह्यरूपदृक् ऊरु मनोभवः पातु जानूनी नररूपदृक् जङ्घे पातु धराभारा हर्ता योऽसौ नृकेसरी सुरराज्यप्रदः पातु पादौ मे नृहरीश्वरः सहस्रशीर्षा पुरुषः पातु मे सर्वशस्तनुं महोग्रः पूर्वतः पातु महावीराग्रजोऽग्नितः महाविष्णुर्दक्षिणे तु महाज्वालास्तु नैऋतः पश्चिमे पातु सर्वेषु दिशि मे सर्वतोमुखः नृसिंहः पातु वायव्यां सौम्यां भूषणविग्रहः ईशान्यां पातु भद्रो मे सर्वमङ्गलदायकः संसारभयतः पातु मृत्योर्मृत्योर्नृकेसरी इदं नृसिंहकवचं प्रह्लादमुखमण्डितं भक्तिमान्यः पठेत् नित्यं सर्वपापैः प्रमुच्यते पुत्रवान् धनवान् लोके दीर्घायुरुपजायते यं यं कामयते कामं तं तं प्राप्नोत्यसंशयम् सर्वत्र जयमाप्नोति सर्वत्र विजयी भवेत् भूम्यन्तरिक्ष दिव्यानां ग्रहाणां विनिवारणं वृश्चिकोरगसम्भूतविशापहरणं परं ब्रह्मराक्षसयक्षाणां दूरोत्सारणकारणं भुजे वा तालपत्रे वा कवचं लिखितं शुभं करमूले धृतं येन सिद्धेयु कर्मसिद्धयः देवासुरमनुष्येषु स्वं स्वम् एव जयं लभेत् एकसन्ध्यं त्रिसन्ध्यं वा यः पठे नियतो नरः सर्वमङ्गलमाङ्गल्यं भुक्तिं मुक्तिं च विन्दति 32 पठेत् शुद्धात्मनां नृणाम् कवचस्यास्य मन्त्रस्य मन्त्रसिद्धिः प्रजायते अनेन मन्त्रराजेन कृत्वा भस्माभिर्मन्त्रणम् तिलकं विन्यसेद्यस्तु तस्य ग्रहभयं हरेत् त्रिवारं जपमानस्तु दत्तं वार्याभिमन्त्रय च प्रशयेद्यो नरो मन्त्रं नृसिंहध्यानमाचरेत् तस्य रोगाः प्रणश्यन्ति ये च स्युकुक्षिसम्भवाः किमत्र बहुनोक्तेन नृसिंहसदृशो भवेत् मनसा चिन्तितं यत्तु स तच्चाप्नोत्य संशयम् गर्जन्तं गार्जयन्तं निजभुजपटलं स्फोटयन्तं हठन्तं रूप्यन्तं तापयन्तं दिवि भुवि दितिजं क्षेपयन्तं क्षिपन्तं क्रन्दन्तं रोषयन्तं दिशि दिशि सततं संहरन्तं भरन्तं वीक्षन्तं पूर्णयन्तं करनिकरशतैर्दिव्यसिंहं नमामि इति श्रीब्रह्माण्डपुराणे प्रह्लादोक्तं श्रीनृसिंहकवचं सम्पूर्णम्
Thank you, Lataji. Thank you very much. Any devotee would like to sing Nrsimha prayer? Monika Mataji, would you and family would like to sing Nrsimha prayer, please? Sorry, Malti Mala Mataji.
Sumanshu, I have Sumanshu on the call. Sumanshu, will you please sing, baby?
Yeah, sure. Namaste Narasimhaya Prahladarayine Hiranyakashipu Vakshaha Shiladankanakhalaye Ito Nrsimho Bharato Nrsimho Yato yato yamitato Nrsimho Ahe Nrsimho Ridhaye Nrsimho Narasimha Madim Sharanam Prapade Tabakara Kamala Bare Nakam Adbhuta Shringham Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanubringham Keshavadhrita Narahari Rupa Jayo Jagadisha Hare Jayo Jagadisha Hare Jayo Jagadisha Hare